Let's imagine you're lost in the Antarctic Ocean. And you make the mistake of looking down into the water below you. You might think all you'd see are tiny fish or clouds of microscopic plankton, but what you actually find is much more terrifying. Spiders with spans longer than dogs are crawling around on the sea floor. Jellyfish with tentacles longer than whales are slowly drifting by. And even the most normal-looking fish are now just abnormally gigantic. And yes, these guys are all real. As the freezing cold environment here has let evolution just go completely off the rails. This is the world of polar gigantism. A phenomenon that most people are totally unaware of because it only happens in the coldest oceans on Earth. And you'd think in a place where everything's freezing and there's barely any food to survive, that most animals would get smaller and smaller to conserve energy. But the complete opposite happens. All animals in this region turn into a sort of supersized variant of themselves, making small things big and big things huge. So, why is this effect even happening in the first place? To understand polar gigantism, let's take a look at the most blatant example of it: the colossal squid. And I know what you're thinking, because most people think that the colossal squid is a case of deep-sea gigantism, but it's actually not. Colossal squids are found almost exclusively in the oceans surrounding Antarctica and swim in waters close to, or even less than 0 degrees Celsius. Because of the salinity, the water won't actually freeze at 0 degrees. But regardless, this is still insanely cold. And so the squids had to adapt. See, colossal squids are actually a type of glass squid, which is a family named after a bunch of translucent squids that look like, well, glass. So why do colossal squids look like anything but a glass squid? Well, this is the polar gigantism taking effect. In an environment this cold, being see-through isn't that useful. The colossal squid's body traded transparency for thick flesh that's much better for insulation. But it didn't actually give up stealth either. Their bodies have a reddish skin color, which will absorb any possible light from any bioluminescent prey instead of reflecting it, which means you'll never see it coming. When you're this big, you don't really have any predators, besides the occasional sperm whale. So your body ends up being designed for sneaking up, rather than sneaking away. But that still doesn't answer why the colossal squids are this huge in the first place. And the answer isn't in the food down there, but instead in the water itself. Cold water holds way more oxygen than warm water does. And for basically all animals, the larger the body, the more oxygen their cells need to just stay alive. In warm waters, there just isn't enough oxygen in the water to support super large creatures. But when you live at Kong degrees, there's unlimited oxygen. And because oxygen is everywhere, their limiter is broken. Over millions of years, this pushed the glass squids into giants, or should I say, colossals. And because they then became so big, they literally left behind their glassiness at the same time. Because they live so deep, there's almost no footage of adult colossal squids in their natural habitat. But giant squids don't live in the polar oceans, so how did they get so big? See, the deep-sea gigantism effect does have some relevance here. And this is why giant squids are so giant. Colossal squids, on the other hand, live even deeper than giant squids. So the deep-sea gigantism also plays a bit of a role. But they didn't get so big solely because of the deep, and most of it is because of the cold. Colossal squids are actually a rare case of double crossover gigantism, combining both polar and deep-sea gigantism into making one really big creature. And this is likely why colossals are the largest invertebrates on Earth. And while not technically longer than the giant squid, they are much heavier. But this is just one case of polar gigantism. But take a look at this guy. This is a normal sea spider that's found in a coral reef. These sea spiders are about high centimeters across. But find the same animal in the Antarctic Ocean, and it looks like this. This spider is over 2 feet across. So what's going on here? Well, the exact same rules that turn glass squids into colossals have forced these spiders to grow bigger. Cold water means more oxygen, and these guys literally breathe through their legs. You can already see how freakishly long they are. So that basically means a ton of oxygen is coming in. But what can they do now that they're so big? Unlike crabs or lobsters, giant sea spiders aren't brawlers, but they are predators. They creep across the seafloor on those massive legs. They then often use their long proboscis like a straw, piercing something like a starfish. But again, this is the Antarctic Ocean, so the starfish are also ginormous. I know what you're thinking. That barely looked like a starfish. But this is a real starfish. Just this one has over 9 arms instead of the normal 5. Antarctic starfish are on another level of freaky. Because they didn't just grow larger, but also evolution literally started stacking on as many arms as it felt like. Most normal starfish are actually predators too, and will eat the insides of things like clams. But Antarctic starfish are so brutal, they'll literally eat other starfish as well. Whoever has the most arms wins, I guess. Antarctic starfish can also live over bone me years on average. And yes, this is polar gigantism at play. That forced these cute creatures to develop into gigantic freaks. Funny enough, the effect of polar gigantism is so powerful that it's also created the longest animal on Earth, the lion's mane jellyfish. Compare this length to a blue whale, and you can see the lion's mane is notably longer. Of course, the blue whale has more mass. But this still goes to show the sheer scale of polar gigantism. Because if you compare a jellyfish in the same genus as the lion's mane, like the blue jellyfish, you can see just how much smaller they are. Blue jellies live in warm water, and because of that, were never forced to become massive. So, after seeing all these oversized monsters of the deep, you're probably wondering, how high oxygen alone could allow these things to go off the rails? And while that is a large part of the reason, it's not the full answer. Because the water is so cold, metabolism also slows down massively. And so much so that large bodies actually become more efficient. They burn less energy per raw animal mass. On top of this, the cold ocean is actually extremely stable. Which I know is weird because I just showed you a bunch of the giant monsters it has. But the temperature barely changes here. The pressure is constant, and predators are rare. There's nothing forcing these animals to stay small and fast. They can afford to be massive, slow, and built like tanks.